What is up? Uncovered Raider Nation. It is me. I am Biggs. I'm here with my boys. I got Raffy in the house. I got Raiderdamus in the house. And we are coming at you on the eve of training camp. How you fellas doing? Are you excited? Are you excited?
Oh, I'm always excited about training camp. It's the first serious Raider football of the year that we get. People will be out there in pads and actual uniforms and not just in shorts and a t-shirt running around. So it'll be actual, real kind of football.
How about
Yes,
you, Raff?
I'm totally excited for the training camp, and this is like one of the first times that I was looking for because the whole defense is gonna build better and bolder. Because this is a training camp. There's nothing, no errors, no mistakes. Putting back to work, we're getting close to them, and then we can do anything could happen because right now it is a training camp, so everything might happen. So let's get back to work and let the football season begin.
Exactly. All right. With that, we're going to get into everything. We got your segments. They're lined up. We got the state of the nation. We'll get into that in a second. We got the players of the week. I didn't know Raffy was coming on the show, so I don't have Raffy's players of the week, but I got them for me and Raiderdamus. We got the Mount Davis Goats at tight end this week, and of course, the jewel in the crown, the diamond segment. Raiderdamus's Hall of Shade. Before we get to that, I do want to switch this little thing, and boom, there you go. Shout out to our graphics department, Dev and Travis, and let's get into the state of the nation. All right, it's time for this. Nope, that was the wrong one. All right.
Oh my goodness.
State of the nation. First, I wanted to lead off, just in case any of you haven't seen this yet, the Raiders have a new logo for their 60th season. Yes, the Raiders are a little bit older than me. That's fucking dope. I love that shit. It goes hard. What do you guys think?
Is that the 65th season?
64.
The 65.
Whatever the math is. I'm not good at math. 65th season. Yeah, sure. 65.
Well, it looks pretty sick, whatever year it is.
You know what? And I should have. Okay, so there is literally a V right there, and also I have my cups from the 60th anniversary season that I got back in 2019 when I was still a season ticket holder at Oakland Coliseum.
My only issue is if you read the Roman numerals, it says LXV, which is 45. So I kind of wish they would have arranged a little bit differently, but I think with the shield and the LV, it kind of has to work this way.
What is 65?
Well, 65 would be I don't know, maybe it would be. Maybe this is right. Jeez, maybe I'm just stupid. I think I'm just stupid.
We got the comments blowing up. Get Shrek says, "What's up, boys?" All right. Yeah, I think it's dope as hell. I can't wait to get all the merch associated with it. Anyway, yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to share it with you. Robert Pena saying, "Rafa, what's up?"
Hello,
All right, so
Pena.
I guess the top story for this day, you guys decide. Is it the rules in Costa Mesa or Michael Gallup?
I mean, the Michael Gallup thing to me was completely expected. I told you from the day we signed him that I didn't think he was ever going to play for the Raiders, and he's not ever going to play for the Raiders. So,
right, he signed a contract and then retired. So that's the Michael Gallup news. Michael Gallup retired today. Forever Raider legend Michael Gallup. Okay. Now let's get into the Costa Mesa shit. Okay, the Raiders are they decided that they wanted to have their training camp in Costa Mesa because there's a large contingent of Raiders fans from the LA area and everything. Problem is, Costa Mesa is within 75 miles of the boundary of the Rams and the Chargers area, and so the Raiders can't have Raider fans at the training camp in Costa Mesa. I mean, maybe you could have done it in Napa, guys. That wouldn't have conflicted with anybody.
You know,
Nothing.
whenever a large business does anything, makes any decision, and you wonder why did they do that, the only answer you're ever going to find is money. So They have done this for some particular reason. I don't know what it is, but it makes financial sense for the Raiders to have not done it in Napa. It makes financial sense for them to do where they're doing it. And, I hope it works out for them because we're not going to be there.
I mean, it makes more financial sense for me for them to do it in Napa.
Well, yeah, but you don't own the Raiders, do you?
No, but I can't go down there. So, Get Shrek Bra says, Ledretrick Griffin season with Michael Gallup retirement. And I've picked him up on some teams and some really, really deep fantasy league teams. I have a 32 team league, and I went and picked him up just because I've heard some rumblings out of camp that he might be a thing. Basically, the murmur that I heard was from Brett Coleman over on Bootleg Football. He likes him a lot, and usually he's right on about everything.
Yeah, right. I've heard a lot of good things too. When we picked him up as a UDFA, there were a lot of write-ups that said this guy has some potential. He could very well make the team. And as soon as we signed Michael Gallup, I completely discarded Michael Gallup as part of the Raiders' future, and I just started looking at the wide receivers we had as UDFAs, which was a couple of them. And I think Griffin has a really good shot to make the roster as the fifth receiver.
Yeah. And speaking about for Michael Gallup, I mean, some people forget that he had more than 1,000 yards in 14 games that year, which is the last year Oakland Raiders for last season. I mean, they didn't put like the same numbers after because he would push down for like wide receiver after he got drafted. I mean, it's unfortunate he was able to return to the format as an injury, but he was like a stand-up guy and never complained despite for the struggles. I mean, he always been like a team player. It's very sad to see it like cut short, but he got paid after his ACL in 2021, which is like the season finale. I mean, he's only 28. I mean, he's not have ever fully recovered. I reminded that even like Mother Medicine, those guys are robots, and not all injuries held to back full, not the back full, but at least he was paid to fell off because getting that generational wealth for the Champions League things. I mean, between for Michael Gallup, I mean, they never forget about for that version. I mean, he was retired for his own terms and not some issues with his knee and everything, but at least he was absolutely for 30 millions in career ins. I mean, millions of endorsements over the year plus sales. I mean, it's very tough that all the money so fast because of brokerage. But that guy, he was just like they just see like an involvement about for this feed and a balls for the speed. I mean, he was like honestly, honestly, he was signed up, but he just left the Cowboys and joined for the Raiders after the most season ending. So I was like very crazy about it. But I know that they didn't expect to see him he retire because he would stick for the roster for like a long time. But I know it's gonna be at least. But that year it ends him. It is so speakingly sadly, but happy for him because it was on terms. It is on terms.
Right. And that's that. You made a few good points. Number one, it was on his own terms. He wasn't being cut. I'm sure staff talked to him and they were like, numbers don't look good for you, buddy. And he probably had some input in that too. Like, but the generational wealth thing, I mean, you can't really ask for more than, like being able to sign contracts like that. And then also he got hurt, and then he was part of a Kellen Moore offense, which doesn't do any favors. It doesn't really support more than one wide receiver. It's a lot of like first read, like go, and it's every time you have somebody who they were on the precipice of greatness and they never really fully reached that. You kind of get a little bit sad, but then you have to realize that that they're going to reconcile all that. And he played in the NFL. I mean, he was 1,000-yard receiver. He's going to take that with him forever. And, and Get Shrek makes a good point, similar to our boy, H. Renfro. And, like he was a top 10 receiver. Renfro was a top 10 receiver. And it was, he can always hang his hat on that. So, all right, next story. And I'll just read the headline here. Raiders Davante Adams would like Tom Brady as team's quarterback. Fuck off. Fox Sports.
Is that really what was said? There's no way.
That's the headline. And so fuck you, fuck everybody over at Fox Sports, except for whoever's gonna hire me for my fantasy forecast show on Memphis radio, Fox Sports Radio. Anyway, like, okay, Ryan Gatos. Let's just call it Ryan. Let's just not Fox News. They're not the ones pushing the button to publish. Ryan Gatos, senior editor. What the hell is wrong with you, man? You know that is just fucking noise. There's nothing. There's no there. Just like fuck off with your clickbait. Why do we go through this every fucking offseason with the bullshit? This is the third offseason that we've had to read Tom Brady's stories, and he was never coming here. Why do we have to go through this shit? Davante Adams wants to go to Aaron Rodgers wants to play with Davante Adams again. So all of a sudden, trade rumors to the Jets. Fuck all of you. Report the goddamn news, not speculation, not what could happen, not fucking imaginary fairy tales that you make up in your head to get people to click buttons. Fucking stop it. Okay. Was that just the anti-Skip Bayless rant?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's not the reality of how journalism works these days.
And I blame Skip Bayless.
Well, I blame the internet personally, because the internet has commodified news to the point where it's essentially free. And to get people to make money, you have to get people to click on your stuff. And to get people to click on your stuff, you have to make a headline that will catch the eye, whether or not it's true. The problem with this particular headline is, first of all, Davante Adams never said that. Secondly, Davante Adams is not white and 5'10", so he definitely does not want Tom Brady as his quarterback. So this is just, the enshittification of the American corporate system, just like everything else that we buy and pay for in this country.
That's a great word.
It's an actual term that over time everything gets more corporate and much worse for the American consumer. And news is just one of the things that we notice the most. Although, food also does that. Television does that. Movies do that. Everything does that. Video games do that. Although I haven't got any sleep over the last 4 days because I've been playing College Football 25, which is the greatest video game of all time. But if you look at Madden since 2012, it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse every single year. There are a few things that stand out in entertainment in this country, but for the most part, things just keep getting worse.
It took me 10 years to finally stop buying Madden. But I was doing the every other year thing, and after the first 3 or 4 times doing that, it just stopped. Even that stopped working. So by 2021, I was done. It was awful. I understand the enthusiasm with which they have gone into NCAA, and that was always my preferred game over Madden in the first place. I played way more of that when that was good than I did of Madden. I just can't afford a next gen console in the game at this point. So
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I love the word enshittification. I'm going to now start folding it into my meringue and my word meringues. And apparently in 2023, it was a word of the year, according to some dictionary. So that's fucking rad. Thank you for that.
No
Yeah.
problem.
And well, I think speaking about for like Devontae Adams, that he wants to be like to bring Tom Brady. I mean, I feel that was like taking like out of the context. I mean, it seems like a Morte is more just giving like the flowers, but I don't think so. I don't think so because how many years does Brady need to retire until we stop hearing rumors, reports about possibly coming
Right.
back? I mean, we know that he's the greatest ever, but for 2 weeks being for 47 years old, I mean, man. And I learned about for like a lot of things with journalism because I was graduated like a degree for journalism, and I understand about for the difference between real and fake. But right now, I just hear all of the time, all this BS of the media that say, "Oh, the Raiders are not even good. The Raiders sucks." I understand, but we are the underdogs, so we can prove to the world that the media is really wrong. Because right now we had to force, and of course we had to show up the world that we are really are. So stop all of the fake news media. So talking about everything about it. So right now it is the opportunity to talk real truth. Real truth. I mean,
Yeah.
that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen because
Mhm.
if there wants to talk it about for Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck, Philly Rivers, I mean, but if it comes to the end, but most of that won't stop it because there's
I
like
think the
clickbait.
overall the lesson here is
Yeah.
you know
Hmm.
Well,
watch.
I think that the two things about Tom Brady we need to really realize here is that number one, Tom Brady did not retire because he was washed up. He's not bad. If Tom Brady were to start for a team tomorrow, that team would probably make the playoffs. Also, Tom Brady has signed a contract with Fox to be a commentator. He's not going to go back on the field, even though he
Right.
probably could. But that's no reason to stop writing articles about him if you can get people to read them and make money. I mean, that's just good journalism. Is putting Tom Brady's
Right.
name on an article that has nothing whatsoever to do with him, so that people will read it and sell advertising.
Right. It's good clickbaiting. All right. I want to shout out because I didn't earlier. On T on. Come on. I'm having computer fuckery. On T6 Soldier. What up, Raf? What up, panel? All right. Next story. This kind of folds a couple into each other. You guys watching Receiver? You watch it already? Did you binge through it? I've been kind of going slow. I'm either working or too tired,
Oh,
but I'm one episode left. It's pretty good. It's the inside Devontae stuff feels real good towards the end of the series when they fired JMD. But the one of the funniest parts about it is that it's less entertaining than it is fodder for the clickbait journalists to like use Devontae
Yeah.
Adams quotes and generate articles. But with that, we had breaking press conference today. Antonio Pierce spoke to the media the day before training camp started. Press conference really didn't like. I mean, he held everything close to the vest. It was coach speak, and there's nothing for him to say. He's just required by the NFL to stand in front of reporters and get asked inane questions. So they asked him about what the candid quotes that from the cameras following Devontae, and he said, "quote There's nothing to talk about. He signed up for a show. There are things shown in the show. It is what it is. Period." Thank you, Antonio Pierce, for not getting into it.
now he's just here so he don't get fined, like a former Raider legend once said.
Basically, yeah. Raider legend, Oakland legend, Cal Bears legend, Marshawn Beast Mode Lynch. All All right. That was the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the Antonio Pierce press conference. Didn't really bring us anything. And so go ahead and give me I got a spoiler for my Slayer of the week. But go ahead and give me I'll start. I'm going to give you one camp battle besides quarterback that I'm really looking forward to, and I want you guys to each give me one. For me, it's going to be Dylan Laube versus the World for the backup or third down role at running back, kick returner. I hope he jumps Alexander Madison and Amir Abdullah. The only way that I'll know that that's happened is if at some point Amir Abdullah gets his walking papers. So what's a camp battle that you guys are looking forward to?
You go ahead, Rafa.
I mean, between for the Antonio Pierce press conference, I mean, what you're talking about for brotherhood, that's the kind of thing that we learn about it. I mean, after the whole disaster that they've been through about for the last season, I mean, between for that, I mean, he was explaining about for like joining up for the team. It's just like the team is like brotherhood. I mean, it just became like part of the essence of the culture, and that's what the training camp. This is when it's needed. I mean, this is something that I was getting bold and getting learning about for like the communication and of course for the leadership. I mean, that became like so realistic, and this is when to really pumped out because this is like very important. And I was listening like the press conference today, and we just see like a lot of defense going on pro because they just wanted to build like piece by piece. Also, they just wanted to get involved for the all for about the defense, and this is a very process because we can listen to that man because how we counted how many times did the CFA say will we be physical? I mean that was very interesting. I mean you can see like things how to go for this one now, and it just became like something realistic that we need to put the work on site.
Right. And that's obviously Antonio Pierce's MO. That's the way he's going to carry himself. That's the coach speak he's going to give every single time, and I love it. There's no fucking about. He just like he says it like it is, and that's it. The Raiders are going to play for each other. They're going to play as a team. They're going to play violent, fast, smart. It's going to be a good season. How about you, Raiderdamus? What's your camp battle?
As far as camp battles, I have a couple of them in mind. The first one would be the left side of the offensive line because the Raiders just put Jackson Powers-Johnson and Colt Miller on the PUP list today. So they're going to be out God knows how long. And if they're on the PUP list to start the season, they're going to have to miss the first 4 games.
From what I read, it wasn't serious enough for them not to start.
Well, it's just this bullshit with Jackson Powers-Johnson has gone on for, 2 months now? I mean, it's worrying the hell out of me at this point. I mean, Colton Miller is what he is. We know that sometimes he'll miss a game or two, and that's fine because when he comes back, he'll be solid as hell. But when Jackson Powers-Johnson basically hasn't played since the first day of rookie OTAs, then alarm bells go off in my head. Is this guy going to have nagging injuries his whole career? Is he going to have massive potential that he never lives up to? I mean, I watched the guy for years at Oregon. He's absolutely fantastic. But if he can't get on the field, then he can't get on the field.
Right.
So I'm looking at Cody Whitehair and Andrew Speed to see how they can do in training camp to step up and fill those spots if they need to be filled for the first month of the season. Because if they don't, they don't. That's great. But if they do, those 2 guys better be freaking ready. The other training camp battle I had in mind was obviously what we discussed earlier, the anything after Trey Tucker in the wide receiver room, like the 4th and 5th spots. Because I think those might be filled by undrafted free agent rookies. And we have Lydia Griffin, and we have some other guys in that as well. So to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to matter all that much because we have 2 tight ends who are good receiving options. So if you have to go past your first 3 receivers and your first 2 tight ends, then maybe you should just take off or throw the ball away.
And running back, yeah,
and running and Dylan Laube or Zamir White coming out of the backfield. If none of those options are good, perhaps the play call was a bad one. However, the 4th and 5th wide receiver slots have to be filled by somebody. And those two somebodies, whoever they are, have to be really, really good at playing special teams. Maybe they're a return specialist. Maybe they're a gunner. Maybe there's something like that. But whoever they are, they're going to have to be someone. So I'm looking forward to seeing who fills those roles.
Right on. And the swing offensive lineman, the back offensive lineman, I kind of lean towards Pete on that one, just because I've seen Whitehair shit the bed so many times. Pete was a Pro Bowler, I think, and other times didn't live up to his potential simply because he was injured a lot. But I think technically he's better than Whitehair is. All right. Although Luke Getsy likes Whitehair enough to have brought him over. Let's get to the players of the week, or as I like to call them on the show, Slayers of the week. So, Ralph, you have been on the show to do this yet. It's a segment that I've introduced since the last time you were on the show. Basically, what we do is we kind of comb through the news and we like some topical, like say it's leading up into the season. We're going to be doing it in season for like, you know, after games like Ballers and whatever the thing was on Silver and Black Pride. I just remember Ballers now, but
Ballers and Busters.
Busters, yeah. It's kind of like that. But you know, we just talk about a player for a second. It's just gives us a little showcase. So if you can think back over the last week, who would you say that has stood out for you this week?
That's a very interesting question, though. But I would say between for the player of the week, I would say between Trey Taylor, a safety for Air Force.
Correct.
I mean, what I just saw for the training camp, I mean, Trey Taylor as a safety, I know instantly that I was going into the field, but I know that he has a great talent, but also he just wanted to tell it about it, but he would just like it backing up. I mean, he would just between like anything could happen because I'm very stuck to bringing up something there for the defense and help out with Marcus Epps, Trayvon Marek. I mean, they're making look out for a great team, but this is also because they became like a steal for the draft, but also they should make it like the roster along with Palomao. I mean, teams that are usually that carry more safeties nowadays, plus Murray and Epps, they were borderline the last year of the contracts. It makes sense to keep both. So I will say that Trey Taylor could be like the player of the week because if they're gonna be like making it a hybrid safety linebacker type, because this one is gonna be better has a great shot because if he can make it, he flies to the right for the say like a high IQ defender, but he's just struggling in the main coverage and we ask like cover deep third or deep hell, but he performs with the same underneath zones.
Yeah, and if you think about it, you have a guy as good as Trey Taylor, won the best safety in NCAA award last year. If he's your baseline on special teams, you're doing good things. How about you, Raiderdamus? Who is your Slayer? Who's your Slayer of the week?
Well, I guess we just revealed that my Slayer of the week is Robert Spillane. When I was growing up, you would build a defense from the middle linebacker on out. You had guys like Matt Millen. You had guys like Ray Nitschke's a little before my time. You had guys like Mike Singletary. When I was younger, he was the big star of the Chicago Bears. And you had guys like that. And when you had that sort of toughness on the inside, that spread throughout your team from the inside out. When the Raiders got really good very suddenly on defense, it wasn't necessarily because of personnel, because the only two personnel they had differently than the years before, where they were one of the worst defenses in football, was Jack Jones and Robert Spillane. But when Antonio Pierce took over, those two guys were Jack Jones was brought on the team by Pierce, and Robert Spillane was kind of unleashed because we hadn't had a linebacker who was really good against the run and also pretty darn good against the pass prior to that. Spillane inserted his extreme level of toughness, his sort of animalistic relation to football, like Bill Romanowski used to have, and probably still does. But he brought a lot of character to the Raiders defense, a character which spread to the rest of the team. And a lot of guys on the Raiders defense are tough. But I think if you ask them who's the toughest of the defense, a lot of them would probably say Robert Spillane. And I hope that continues on into this season. I think the Raiders defense is going to be very hard to deal with. I think Spillane is going to be nearly impossible to deal with. And I think he's going to be a big, big star coming out of this year.
Yeah.
So that's my guy.
Absolutely. I love him. I wasn't excited. I was told by a Steelers fan not to get excited, but he is exactly. I grew up playing linebacker and fullback, so that's my mentality in my head. And I'm always a defense first, always a start from the linebacker. The Packers kind of ruined that in the 90s, but I've always been a big linebacker guy, and we hadn't had anybody. I had to like certain things about certain linebackers, but there was always a flaw in whoever it was. Kirk Morrison was a different story. I loved him just because of, shout out NorCal. But Spillane is like a return to that linebacker that type that I love. And then we got another one in the draft, fellas.
We did. And when he was asked who does he model his game after, he said Ray Nitschke. So yeah. I get excited when I hear something like that. He said he had a poster on his wall in his bedroom as a kid of Ray Nitschke. It's like, how do you get any more linebacker than that? You don't.
Right. All right.
The Steeler fan may have told you not to be excited, but those people only get excited about dating their cousins and putting ketchup on steak. So don't listen to them.
Wow. All right. Jot that one down for yourself. All right. By the way, on August 8th, I land in Cleveland. Anyway,
I'm sorry
for my Slayers of the week. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to take two guys, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to take them. I'm also going to cheat in that it's not from the past week. It's for the upcoming weeks. And I'm going to name Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell my Slayers of the week. And I'll tell you why. Because there is not a story out there involving the Raiders besides Davante Adams that doesn't include Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and the quarterback battle. You have to start reading between the lines. You have to start trying to separate the signal from the noise. And the signal is that it's Aiden O'Connell's job, period. I don't care if you think Gardner Minshew is better than Aiden O'Connell. I don't care if Gardner Minshew makes more money than Aiden O'Connell. It's Aiden O'Connell's job. The signal comes from Davante Adams saying that he is bought in. Antonio Pierce saying that it's Aiden O'Connell's job to lose. Antonio Pierce saying that and Aiden O'Connell is going to get most of the snaps. The beat writer saying that Gardner Minshew is going to have a diminished role when it comes to, but they always finish everything up by then saying it's anybody's guess. You have to separate the noise, focus on the signal, and the signal is it's Aiden O'Connell, period. And not only do we all have to listen to that, but they have to listen to it too. And they have to, every time they come to the podium, they have to listen to the questions. And every time they get interviewed, they're going to have to listen to the questions. Aiden O'Connell is the starting quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders, period, until further notice. Stop asking. And because they have to deal with that, they are my Slayers of the week.
Yeah, I think we're going to read some discouraging news reports for training camp, just because of the simple fact that both of these guys are in a brand new offense they're trying to learn while simultaneously facing the Las Vegas Raiders defense every single day. And
iron sharpens iron.
It's a vast difference between that and going out in your first week of preseason and facing the Minnesota Vikings third stringers. So when it comes to that, we're going to really see who's got a control of the offense as who can execute it against somebody else besides Max Crosby and his merry band of idiots. I mean, it's probably really challenging to go against that group, even if you know the offense, let alone if you don't.
Right.
So let's just not get our heads down if we read some things that are not quite as glowing as we would like to read.
And you're going to read them. You're going to read them about both quarterbacks. O'Connell didn't look good this day. Gardner Minshew didn't look good this day. Antonio Pierce talked about that in his presser.
Well, you know who else didn't look good? Patrick Mahomes on Christmas fucking day. You're not gonna look good. I'm sorry.
Right. All right. The next segment that we got, Raph, is we have nominations for Mount Rushmore. Basically, we're going position group by position group, and we're nominating the greatest of all time. We're doing one a week, and this week it's tight ends. Here we go. And Raiderdamus, lead us off.
All right. Well, this week we are doing the greatest of all time tight ends for the Raiders, and I picked who I believe is the greatest tight end in Raiders history, and that is the ghost himself, Dave Casper. Dave Casper was drafted in the second round of the 1974 NFL draft out of University of Notre Dame. Dave Casper is one of the greatest tight ends in Notre Dame history. And they recruited him out of a high school called Chilton High School in Wisconsin, which is about 35 miles south of Green Bay. And in his senior year, his team outscored all the other teams they played 363 to nothing. So he had a pretty darn good high school career at Chilton.
Wow.
That was the only year that he played there. But he was a lineman when he played for Chilton, and he was a lineman for the first several years he was at Notre Dame. He only had, I think, one catch for like 6 yards in the 1972, 1973 seasons. In 1974, he exploded on a really good Notre Dame team, and he had like 4 touchdowns, and he had like 60 catches. But that was a team that ran the ball almost every single play. So for a tight end to do that well was really something. And the great legendary Notre Dame coach Ara Parsegian said that Dave Casper was the greatest athlete he ever had the privilege to coach. And considering how long Ara Parsegian was at Notre Dame, who in the 70s had probably the best crop of athletes in college football, that's really something. And so when Casper came to the Raiders in 1974, for the first couple of years, didn't do much. 1976, however, he had a massive year. They won the Super Bowl, and he was there for several more years until he was traded to the Oilers, and then they traded him to the Vikings. But he came back to the Raiders in, I believe, 1984 to finish out his career with them. But Dave Casper had a penchant for blocking really well and making just spectacular catches when he didn't think he could do it. He's known for the ghost in the post over-the-shoulder catch. He's known for the holy roller against the Chargers, which because the Raiders won, they had to make a rule against that. Dave Casper is just the man. He should be recognized as one of the greatest tight ends of all time. He's a member of both the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the College Football Hall of Fame. When you think about Raider tight ends, it has to start with him. So that's all I got on him.
All right. I'm going to send Raph a message. And
I think that it's gonna say anything, but
I'm gonna ask Raph for yours, but read the chat.
All right.
Okay. So Raph, who is your GOAT tight end in Raiders history?
Oh, for the tight end history. I mean, I know this is gonna be like really complicated, but I mean, between for the tight end is gonna be not very difficult about it, but for the all time that I just wanted to think about it, it's between anything could happen, but there's like a name called Raymond Chester.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Raymond Chester became like he was trading him for the Baltimore Colts because he was growing up from Maryland, but he lives in Oakland. But he was like very enjoyed for the silver and black, and he was just like the rookie of the year, made it like at a 3 straight, and he was playing like at this. He caught like 200. He was very selected at the Pro Bowl 4 times, but I think that man, which is Raymond Chester, I mean, definitely he was going to like a Mount Rushmore Titans because he has something like very unique, very spark that he was undeniable.
Yeah, and he also played for the Raiders two different stints. Started out
Yeah.
with the Raiders in 1970, 71, 72, then back in 79, 80, and 81. Uh, so that I think that means that he won a Super Bowl ring with the Raiders. Congratulations to him.
Yep.
Um, all right. My GOAT tight end played for the Raiders from 1978 to 1983. In the middle of the season 1983, he was traded to the New England Patriots. At some point before that, and I've told the story on the show before. And basically what it does is it gets down to the root of exactly why I'm a Raiders fan. In the early 80s they used to play donkey basketball. They still do it every once in a while where they play for charity. And the Raiders and the 49ers would play each year at the Rec Hall Arena at UC Davis, where I grew up and currently live. My aunt, being a UC Davis student and loving her nephews, took my brother and I to one of the games. And after the game, we got to stick around, meet all the players on both sides, get autographs and everything. Freddie Solomon, Ray Francis, or Russ Francis, a bunch of 49ers. And then on the Raiders side, it was Art Shell and Derek Ramsey and a bunch of other guys. I'm pretty sure Kenny King was probably there too. Now, the next day, my buddies and I go to the school around the corner from my house, and we're playing a pickup game of sandlot football. While we're out there, we see this dude, and he's sitting on one of the picnic tables at the little park area next to the field that we're at. And he comes over, and he's got an NFL regulation football in his hand. And he says, "You guys want to play with this?" We're like, "Yeah, we want to play with that." So he tosses it to me. He says, "I'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. You come back and give me my ball back, and we'll be good. But I got to go." And I'm like, "Heck yeah." Next day, come back. He never shows up. I get the ball. That was Derek Ramsey. Because of that dude, I became a Raiders fan immediately. I could have gone either way. I grew up in Northern California. The 49ers were winning Super Bowls. The Raiders were winning Super Bowls. When you're 7, 8, 9 years old, you don't really know what to do except for who you see posters for at Wendy's and shit like that. But this man was so nice to me as a tiny little kid, not tiny, but a young child, that it created a Raider fan for the rest of my life till I die, silver and black forever. On top of that, he did have an okay career. He won a Super Bowl in 1981 with the Raiders. He had 674 yards that year. But it was really his life afterwards. He became a politician, and at some point he was the Deputy Secretary of Commerce under Governor Ernie Fletcher in Kentucky from 2003 to 2007. Having been from Kentucky and a graduate of University of Kentucky, he was the Kentucky Deputy Secretary of Commerce for 5 years, 2003 to 2007, and that's pretty good to follow up an NFL career with a spot in state government for a while. So because of that, Derek Ramsey, you become a GOAT of Mount Davis. Now I want to address this shot real quick. There were portraits that I could have used, but this head comes from this slide that I want to show, and this is such a great picture. So I don't know what's happening, but it looks like somebody made an interception. Lester Hayes, my favorite Raider of all time, is on the ground. And then you can see this kid, like somehow kid gets a Raiders shirt. So he's got to be like son of a coach or or like somebody in the organization, maybe just a ball boy. But he is reacting too, and I absolutely love this shot, and so I had to use that for my Derek Ramsey slide. But Derek Ramsey is my goat.
That kid is probably like 50 years old now.
Yeah, no, he's older than that. He's got to be older than me because Ramsey left when I was 9, and so that kid is at least 9 years old. He looks like he's more about 13 or 14. So he's probably 55 right now. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna do some research. I'm gonna find out if he's like the son of one of the coaches and is now like on a staff in the NFL.
I would be very interested to know.
Wouldn't that be interesting? I will let you know next week, or I might even DM you before then.
Sounds good.
All right, and then finally to close this out, Rafa, you have not been here for this either. Raiderdamus and I came across each other when I was commenting and he was writing for Silver and Black Pride on SB Nation back when Levi Damien was the editor of that. And yes, let's get Levi on the show. Pull your strings. So Raiderdamus was writing a column every Friday, basically, before every Raiders game, every week before the Raiders game, and who posts on Silver and Black Pride. He's now doing it on the Raider Ramble. And basically, he just like whoever the Raiders' opponent is, he just spends a couple thousand words absolutely eviscerating. And it's some of the funniest shit that I've ever read, which inspired me. My first blog gig, writing Raiders stuff, I wanted to start a podcast. And so I reached out to Raiderdamus and I said, hey, let's do a podcast. And he said, sure. And then everything folded and I went away for a while. 7 years later, I start this gig at the Undroppables Uncovered, and the first person I reached out to was Raiderdamus. Hey, let's get this going. So that's how we came across each other. So we have a segment to finish out every week. It's Raiderdamus's Hall of Shade. All right. Take it away.
All right. To begin today's Hall of Shade rant, I want to take you back to the year 1996, quite a while ago. But two things took place in that year which set us up for the shit show I'll be discussing today. The first thing was the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which removed restrictions on how many radio or media companies one company or person could own. The second thing was the founding of Live Nation by Mr. Robert Sillerman. The company was initially known as SFX Entertainment, but it was sold to Clear Channel in the year 2000 and later spun off from Clear Channel Entertainment in 2005 as Live Nation. Live Nation then purchased and merged with Ticketmaster in 2009. If you have recently purchased any concert or event tickets and wondered why the fees are almost as much as the ticket itself, this merger is the reason why. Live Nation owns almost every major music venue in the United States and gives Ticketmaster exclusive rights to sell tickets to any show they promote. Ticketmaster and their diabolical business practices are today's inductee into the Raiderdamus Hall of Shade. There is an argument to be made that Ticketmaster's cornering of the live music market is just good business, because there was another development around 1996 I didn't mention earlier. That development was that the internet became available in an ever-increasing number of homes, and an infamous program was released into the wild called Napster. It allowed file sharing from peer-to-peer and computer to computer, meaning anybody who had a digital music file could share it with as many people as wanted to download it for their own collection. This development essentially turned music from a cherished good into a public utility, making music free to anybody with an internet connection. It remains so to this day, as any newly released music album can be found on YouTube in perfect clarity. Metallica sued Napster because Metallica wasn't rich enough and didn't yet have enough golden cock rings or beach houses for their liking. Metallica won, but it made no difference because Napster was soon replaced with the likes of Kazaa and LimeWire and later iTunes, which legitimized digital music downloads because they were no longer free. And so, music returned to being a commodity yet again, but the damage had been done. Album sales would never again be the crux of a musician's income. The only option for a musician to make money is to tour incessantly and sell merchandise. And guess who exploits musicians out of as big a cut as they can get? You guessed it, Ticketmaster / Live Nation. But let's go back to the Telecommunications Act. The removal of restrictions on radio station ownership led to a surge in mergers and acquisitions, and eventually Clear Channel owned nearly every major radio station in the country. With a monopoly on their hands, Clear Channel had no reason to take any risks and allowed only the most safe, corporate, lowest common denominator bullshit music with the broadest public appeal to see the light of day. This is why there has been relatively zero innovation in music over the last 2 decades. Nobody with an edge or a message will ever get played. And so the interesting bands with quality musicianship and relevant messages are forced to take to the internet and tour in relative obscurity until they burn out on drugs or exhaustion. And even the few bands who are both good and popular have to pay their tithe to Ticketmaster. This is the lesson taught to the music industry by Pearl Jam, who saw early on the evils of Ticketmaster and fought them and lost. Also, if you're wondering why we used to have dozens of major media companies producing television content and news, and now we have about 6 companies, severely limiting the diversity of acceptable thought and opinions within the public sphere, the Telecommunications Act is why. In recent years, Ticketmaster has made new enemies, and fearsome ones at that. About a year ago, Taylor Swift fans were horrified when they waited for hours to buy tickets for the Eras tour and were unable to do so, only to find that most of those tickets were up on resale scalper sites and had already been for days. Swifties, who often act like Taylor Swift personally invented music, found out what actual adults had known for years, which is that Ticketmaster's website crashes constantly and Ticketmaster scalps tickets from itself to sell on the secondary market and make more money. Swifties discovered that Ticketmaster's practices are as oppressive as your average sleep paralysis demon, which normally wouldn't face Ticketmaster because their entire business plan is to be a cartoon villain and they take the heat for the people who are really setting prices, which are the artists themselves. But this time was different. Ticketmaster had pissed off thousands and thousands of people who were rich enough to afford Taylor Swift tickets. Nobody can say that Swifties have great taste in music, but what they do have is unity and toxicity. They weaponized this toxicity in a campaign to get Ticketmaster shut down. And last month, after yet another data breach which left millions of users' personal data compromised, the Justice Department announced that they were suing Ticketmaster to break up their monopoly, as they had done to Ma Bell decades ago. Apparently, the bribes Ticketmaster pays to get out of trouble weren't enough for Congress, who it seems will set aside their differences long enough to destroy this one company in particular, which charges exorbitant fees and provides nothing of value in return. And I dare say no other company deserves to be torn apart and scattered to the winds more than Ticketmaster. So fuck you, Ticketmaster. Burn in hell. I'm not paying $300 to see a washed-up Blink 182. That's all I got to say about that.
Wow.
Fire. My buddy he's an uprigger for a couple of different unions that do live concerts and stuff in the Bay Area, Northern California, and he just did the Blink 182 shows the other day.
Well, they charge way too dang much for them. Also, one thing I wanted to mention about that is that CD sales are down the toilet, which is one of the reasons that Ticketmaster supposedly can charge all this money, is because, you know, you have to tour to make money as an artist. But what I'll say is that my laptop doesn't have a CD drive. My PlayStation 5 also doesn't have a CD drive because that model doesn't come with one. So what the hell am I supposed to play a CD on right now? I can't. I physically can't. So, like, I can't even buy physical media if I wanted to.
I have a record player that has it has a turntable, a CD player, a cassette deck, and Bluetooth. So I can hook up Bluetooth speakers. I can stream like Spotify or YouTube music or whatever through it, and also play my records and all that stuff. They're about $50 on Amazon, but then you have to buy something from Amazon.
I think the last several laptops I have purchased do not have CD drives, and
Correct.
I grew up with CD drives on basically every computer that I had. So, you know, it was a bit of a culture shock to not see them. But then I realized, you know, my CD collection, I don't even know where it is anymore, and you know, most everything I listen to is either on, you know, YouTube Music or, you know, one of those streaming sites. So, like, what am I supposed to purchase here to support the artist that I want? Like, I don't have anything physical to purchase.
No, you have to. What I do is I go buy their merch from their websites. That's about the only thing that I can do, and I go see them in concert as often as I can, even if I have to pay a fee. But it's the only way that they're getting money. I just recently got back into listening to LPs. We my girlfriend and I opened up our balcony for lounging, and I have the record player up here. I went to my dad's house, raided his record stacks. So I got a bunch of the stuff that I grew up listening to and collect a little bit on my own. And then this last 2 weeks ago, I had a fantasy event in San Francisco I went to. And one of my buddies, who I know from the fantasy events, I walked in the door at our other friend's house and he hands me Led Zeppelin 3 on vinyl. And he was just like, "Here you go, bro." I was like, "Fuck,
That's a good
yeah.
one.
Ah!
Yeah. Every show I go to, I do try to buy a T-shirt, which is why my closet is almost exclusively like Mastodon and Guar T-shirts, and they're all black. So it doesn't matter what I wear. I always look like somebody going to a metal show.
I just watched the Mike Powell TED Talk last night where he was talking about how Richmond, Virginia birthed Guar and how it's like it's weaved into the fabric and how economics generate art, and it was actually pretty good. You should look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it already.
Lamb of God that is from Richmond as well, and I've seen them probably 5 or 6 times.
Lamb of God, I saw open for Slayer. They fucking rock so hard.
Yeah, I saw them open for Slipknot. I've seen them with The Sword. I did see them open for Slayer. It was Behemoth, Lamb of God, and Slayer on their last tour. They came up here. It was a good show.
Oh, I love it.
I love The Sword too.
I remember that I was watching one of my first concerts. That was back in 2018 when I was watching Metallica when it comes to Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I had the opportunity to see what are those concerts with independent rock metal bands. And also I had the opportunity to see Slipknot, Rolling Stones. Also there's Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, imagine because I'm just like a great fan of rock and metal music, but also for the Raiders. But I mean, the influence of the rock and metal music, it really influenced about my life, but also it became like some part of those moments that I will never forget. And those concerts are really part of it because every time that I just take a look at a picture or a video, I mean, that became some part of the life and those moments I will never forget about in life. And before that, the ticket was not that very expensive, but I had the opportunity to see it at the front line.
I think the best example of the Ticketmaster fuckery, apart from Pearl Jam and what they did, is the Rage Against the Machine reunion tour, where Rage Against the Machine started off. Their first concert was a free show at a junior college in Southern California, and their lyrical content has always been anti-establishment and fuck corporate America and blah blah blah. Capitalism sucks. And then they reunited, and tickets were $200 a piece. Fuck you. What machine are you raging against now, you dicks?
Poor people.
Right. All right. That is our show. We should have just like a music one day. That would be
hell yeah.
That would be awesome. We could talk about some serious like fucking music. All right. Everybody tune in Tuesdays, 8 p.m. I'm thinking of moving to 5 p.m. if you're down for that, guys. Just something that I've been kind of contemplating, and
Fine by me.
We'll talk about it. Other than that, fuck the Broncos.
Fuck the Chiefs.
Yeah.